Portions of the Smurf Christmas special are being brought to you tonight by Mattel Toy Company.
The Luke Skywalker X-Wing pilot from the Star Wars action figures collection, each sold separately.
I'm Jabba. Want to buy a droid?
When Kenner released their Star Wars action figure line, it changed the action figure market. The toy line would rule the toy stores and rake in record dollar sales in action figures with barely any competition. That was until 1983, when Kenner started to feel the power of the other toy lines.
We'll fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe.
Cobra's attacking! We're outnumbered! G.I. Joe to the rescue!
A year before, Hasbro had retooled their famous G.I. Joe line, sizing them down closer to the Star Wars action figure size, and rebranding it G.I. Joe, a real American hero. Hasbro G.I. Joe line seemed like an update on the small action figure toys of its time. The new G.I. Joe action figures had articulation that these Star Wars figures didn't have.
Now you can imagine all the power in the universe. The Masters of the Universe collection. 23 pieces, each sold separately. There's He-Man and these heroic action figures. Skeletor and the Warriors of Evil, and 4 fighting creatures.
That same year, Mattel released their action figure line to take on Star Wars, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. With the He-Man line, Mattel changed things up a bit by making the figures bigger and coming with action features.
Star Wars, more than a movie, a force. A screen explosion that catapulted us from our seats and sent us reeling into space. A single story that spawned a saga, spanned a generation, and shuttled Kenner sales high into a galaxy far, far away.
But Kenner had taken on new toys in the past, and a new Star Wars movie was being released in 1983. So how could Mattel or Hasbro hurt the sales of the Kenner Star Wars toys?
A brand new Kenner collection for 1983. Yes, the biggest blockbuster yet is out in May, and from the looks of it, our heroes aren't about to meet defeat. Kenner knows the Force is one that few can master.
Kenner always had the release of the Star Wars blockbuster films to help promote the line. A new movie was more than just a new chapter in the Star Wars story. It was a big screen commercial for the toy line, being seen by millions. This was something the rival toy companies couldn't compete with. Their lines based on movies would come and go. As for toys based on TV shows, before 1983, the FCC would not allow kid shows, mostly cartoons, to double as commercials for toy lines. While Kenner had a big screen blockbuster commercial, the other toy lines had nothing. But with the drop of the FCC rule, toy companies could work alongside TV producers to help sell the toy line and the cartoon series that the toy line was based on.
Yo, Joe! We'll fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe, real American hero. G.I. Joe is there.
He-man and the Masters of the Universe. I am Adam, Prince of Eternia and defender of the secrets of Castle Grayskull. This is Cringer, my fearless friend.
Mattel and Hasbro both launched a cartoon series that would help promote their toy line, and each cartoon could be seen daily. With Star Wars, Kenner had to wait for the big screen commercial to help toy sales every 3 years, with the rival toy lines having cartoons to help push sales airing daily. The cartoons also brought something that the movies couldn't. The toy companies could use the cartoon to sell new additions to the toy line. Kenner was tied to mostly what was seen in the Star Wars films. This would limit what Kenner could do with the Star Wars line and give the rival toy companies freedom to expand their lines. By 1984, Kenner was starting to see the effects on the changing toy market. The Star Wars action figure line was still on top, but the writing was on the wall. The competition was closing in. With no new Star Wars movie in sight and a lot of the Star Wars fan base now reaching their teen years, it was clear Star Wars action figures were losing the fight to stay on top.
Stepping softly in a danger zone. No weapon in my hand.
Kenner hoped it could stay on top of the toy sales, thanks to not one, but 2 cartoon series based on Star Wars. These two series, Star Wars Droids and Ewoks, could give Kenner more freedom of what they could produce, and the weekly cartoons could help promote the line. However, the Droids and Ewoks cartoon was unable to capture the cartoon-watching kids as much as G.I. Joe and He-Man. Both of the Star Wars cartoon series were quickly canceled. Each year from 1978 to 1984, Kenner saw an increase in sales, but in 1984, their shares of the market had dropped from 58% in 1982 to 31% in 1984. It was clear He-Man, G.I. Joe, and the Transformers were taking a huge bite out of the Kenner Star Wars toy sales, and all three had a toy cartoon series to help push sales.
Coming from the farthest reaches of space are the most awe-inspiring, the most desired gifts of the galaxies. They are the Star Wars collector's coins.
Kenner's last hope was to rebrand Star Wars. In 1985, Kenner released Star Wars Power of the Force action figure line, throwing in with the figures a collectible coin with each figure to hopefully have kids looking to buy figures they already had in order to collect the full set of coins. The line was also not based on one single movie, so the Kenner team could go back and pick up some missed opportunity from the past films. They were not locked down to just making figures on the current film. The rebranded Star Wars line, like the cartoon series line, failed to make an impact. Figures from the Ewok line, Droid line, and the Star Wars Power of the Force line was quickly hitting toy stores' bargain bin, and stores were not ordering more figures, making more space for Transformers, He-Man, G.I. Joe, and more. For years, Kenner's Star Wars action figures were the king of the toy hill, but in late 1985, it was clear those days were over. With no new Star Wars movie in sight, and without a cartoon series, along with declining sales of the action figure line, Kenner canceled the Star Wars Power of the Force line, along with the Ewoks and Droids cartoon line, ending its sale of Star Wars toys that had started back in 1978.
When Darth Vader and his stormtroopers attack, join Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, and Han Solo.
It would be 9 years before Kenner, now under Hasbro, would return to the Star Wars toy galaxy.
Just remember, despite Darth's dark, devious plots, rebels never die. Star Wars truly is forever.
I want to thank you for watching. As always, please thumb up my videos so I know you like my content, and subscribe to the channel.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.